back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to go and touch on a subject that is prevalent in the nursing career. It may not happen to you. Let me just throw that out there. But at bedside nursing, you may experience workplace violence. It has happened to me in various situations, both by staff and also patients. So we're going to, not at the level though, that this poor lady I'm about to show you has gone through. Some of you may have heard of this already. Some of you may live in Florida, I don't know, or on the East Coast. But this is a story that we really haven't heard here in California unless you're on the internet and you're looking at social media. So I'm just going to bring her up. We're going to look at the video and then multiple videos because there's some follow-up. There's some rallies that have taken place for this poor woman, and we're just going to take a look at it. And at the end, I'm going to give you some tips on how to deal with it if you ever encounter it. But really, I want y'all to pay attention to what the CEO said and what my take is on it, and how and kind of pay attention on how you take it, because there are different ways that I could take it. So we'll talk about that after this.
Did she hurt somebody with the scissors? She stabbed a nurse.
Frantic 911 calls describe the terrifying moments a Palm Beach nurse was brutally attacked on the job. The person believed to be the attacker, a Baker Act patient. We want to warn you, the story you're about to see may be difficult to watch.
Sheriff's Office 911.
We had a Baker Act via staff member unconscious. Now running around the building.
Oh my God.
Urgent 911 calls
It's absolute chaos.
detailing frantic moments.
Okay, where is the injured nurse? The nurse is in the floor. The nurse is on the floor. Is she bleeding? Yes. I'm on the third floor. There's some guy in here that's yuck.
I still feel like it's unreal. I can't believe this is actually happening.
And as Cindy Joseph and Chris Lyles sit in their attorney's office trying to hold it together, it's hard to believe those 911 calls are talking about their mother.
It's just pretty much unimaginable to me this actually happened while she was at work, somewhere she's worked for over 20 years taking care of patients. I'm still in shock and disbelief.
Last week, investigators say a Palms West nurse identified by her family as 67-year-old Layla Malal was, quote, inexplicably attacked by a 33-year-old Baker-acted patient. They say it's Stephen Scantleberry. The affidavit said essentially every bone in the victim's face was broken and that she was likely to lose the use of both eyes. A 911 call also reveals the suspect may have used scissors to attack her.
Scissors? Yeah. Did he hit somebody with the scissors? Did he hurt somebody with the scissors? Yes. He stabbed a nurse? Okay, does he still have the scissors? Yes or no? Yes.
What was going through her head? The pain she felt, the confusion, the trauma she's going to have for this for the rest of her life.
These are photos the family shared of Malal after the attack, showing her eyes swollen shut and bruises throughout her face and collarbone.
She had bleeding in the brain, subdural bleeding and subarachnoid bleeding. She was unconscious, intubated, not responding. The first night was pretty crazy. She was very unstable.
Now the siblings have questions, particularly over a 911 call involving a man who identified himself to dispatchers as the Palms West CEO and what he told dispatchers about the unconscious victim.
They said they assaulted the employee until they passed out? Yeah, unconscious. I'm not worried about that part. I need the Baker I dealt with. And this could be nearly a fatality.
I couldn't imagine how heartless that was. How could they say that they didn't care about her, or they cared more about the Baker Act patient than their own nurse who's been there with them for 20 years? And then that comment at the end about how she's probably going to die, that really, really, really hurt me and really hit hard.
Attorney Karen Terry is now representing the Loss family. They haven't yet filed suit, but Terry says she's looking at, quote, all avenues of recovery for the family, believing the hospital was negligent and had a, quote, reckless disregard for Law's safety.
This absolutely could have been and should have been prevented on every level.
We reached out to HCA Florida and Palms West for a response. A representative says she's working to answer questions over security, yet her children remain frustrated, angry, and fearful.
I'm just so mad at the situation and sad, and my mom is everything to me. She's She's my biggest supporter and always there for her, always there for me. I can't imagine my life without her. And this is not fair to her. She's 67 years old. She could have retired, a long time ago, but she chose to be a nurse and to keep caring for patients. She loves her job.
What I gather is that this patient is some kind of psychiatric hold patient. But let me look up the Baker Act, because we don't have that here in California. So when I Googled the Baker Act, it is a Florida law, and it allows for involuntary mental health examinations. It's known as the Mental Health Act of 1971 when it comes to Florida. So over here we have holds, certain holds for psychiatric holds, and we will hold the patient in-house at an acute facility. So with the Baker Act, it can be used if the person has refused a voluntary exam, if the person's unable to decide if an exam is needed, if the person is likely to be neglected, if the person is likely to cause harm, serious harm to themselves or others. It's initiated by a petition by somebody who has firsthand knowledge that this person is violent or may harm themselves or others. A judge will review the petition and may grant an order for the person to be taken to a receiving facility for examination. So this person was not placed in a psychiatric facility. So most likely a person that can file that petition would be someone with intimate knowledge about you, parents, spouses, or any type of relative, a director of a licensed service provider, a private practitioner, and any adult who has direct personal knowledge of the person's substance abuse or impairment. So this is what they mean by Baker Act. This patient is a Baker Act patient. However, I also want to acknowledge the CEO's comment about he's not concerned about their nurse. Basically, he's concerned about the Baker Act. I'm thinking that maybe because if you're going to get injured, what better place to get injured than a hospital? So her care is taken care of in the emergency room. He could have elaborated on that, really, if that's what he meant. But it is taken as you don't give a damn about the nurse. And we already think that as nurses, that administration and hospitals do not give a damn about nurses. So he should have been more careful with his words if that's what he actually meant, that he's not concerned because she's in the best care and they were able to get on top of that care right away because she's in the hospital and get her down to the ED or the ER. But he didn't. Interesting. So let's move on to another video.
First at 5, we are getting new information today about the attack on a hospital nurse that left her critically injured.
That's right. This is a case we have been tracking closely since the attack 1 week ago. WPTV's Jamie Ostroff has been digging into new statements and the action just taken in court. Jamie, what can you tell us today?
Yeah, lots of new insights today, Todd. I'll walk you through each of them, beginning with one of the biggest questions that many of us have been asking. And that is, how was a patient who had been identified as a danger to himself and others not at a facility that was equipped to handle that type of case? HCA Florida Palms West Hospital is not a Baker Act receiving facility, but Stephen Scantlebury was a Baker Act patient. Well, HCA Florida told me today that Scantlebury had driven himself to the hospital with another complaint not related to his mental health. The hospital could not tell me what that issue was because of patient privacy laws, but they said that is why he was admitted. Now, according to the spokesperson I talked to, once Scantlebury was evaluated at Palms West, the provider there decided he needed to be Baker Acted. But before Scantlebury could be taken to a Baker Act receiving facility, he needed to be treated for his medical issue. The spokesperson telling me Scantlebury was not waiting for a psychiatric bed to open up in a receiving facility. Now, again, in order to place someone under the Baker Act, they need to be deemed a threat to themselves or others. And Scantlebury's arrest report said he had been acting paranoid for 2 days before he allegedly leapt from the hospital bed and brutally beat the nurse, Lilama Lal. Now, I am still working to get to the bottom of what steps were or were not taken to protect the people in the hospital. But the hospital is addressing questions today about how its CEO reacted to the attack. My colleague Kate Hussey shared 911 audio with you Monday in which Palms West's CEO can be heard telling a dispatcher, quote, "I am not concerned about that part," referring to the unconscious nurse who had just been attacked. HCA releasing this statement regarding that comment on the call, saying in part, quote, immediately after the attack, our primary focus was on providing care to our injured colleague and getting her to our hospital's emergency department. After ensuring she was getting the life-saving care she needed, our CEO, who is a trained paramedic and assisted in providing initial care, called 911. To be clear, the purpose of the call to 911 was to quickly notify the police of the immediate threat and to make sure the attacker was captured and did not hurt anyone else. We also had some developments in court today. A risk protection order was filed in Scantlebury's case today, so he will not have access to firearms for at least the next 2 weeks. Scantlebury pleaded not guilty yesterday to a second-degree attempted murder charge with a hate crime enhancement. There is a hearing scheduled for tomorrow in which the judge will consider whether Scantlebury should remain in jail until his trial. Prosecutors argue Scantlebury is a danger to the public, where the defense is saying he should not be sitting in jail away from the mental health care that he needs. We also received an update on the victim's condition today. We are told that Lal is doing a bit better, but she did have to be put back on a ventilator as she continues to recover. Todd, Megan.
Thank you, Jamie.
So now we see here what's being done as far as the trauma that has been inflicted upon this nurse and what's going to happen to the guy that committed the crime. Now, it's interesting that there was a practitioner that said he should be Baker acted. And it is true that you have to take care of the medical issue before you can release the person to psychiatric care, at least in California. Now, he went to the facility not admitted from a psychiatric facility, but he went directly there to get some kind of medical issue taken care of. It's also interesting that for the Baker Act, someone has to say that this person is a danger to themselves or others. It was recorded that this person was experiencing paranoid behavior. So I wonder if that qualifies as something that would make someone become a Baker Act patient. It didn't look like it was something that should have been considered right away that he be Baker acted, because no one jumped on that. Unfortunately, this nurse was the person that encountered his psychiatric mood or his psychosis, whatever he was going through. And the CEO's response is still not helping me to believe that what I said before was true, that he's not concerned about that nurse because, she's already in the ED and receiving the best care. You need to be concerned about your staff and the immediate safety of the staff and the patients surrounding them as well. If this person is a cause for concern, I think the cops should probably handle that part. The cops can come and alleviate the violence, at least. So you should be more concerned about your nurse. That's what I think. Because they are the ones that have been there. She's been there for years. Given her time selflessly, loved her job. And this happened to her, unfortunately, and you're concerned about that patient. Yeah.
Week we told you about the 67-year-old nurse at Palms West Hospital in Loxahatchee who was brutally attacked by a patient. Medical reports saying he broke every bone in the nurse's face, and she may have lost her eyesight. She is expected to survive. This afternoon, hundreds of people rallied to show support for the nurse, hoping for her recovery. Our Jamilka Gibson was there and spoke with those who came. She joins us in the newsroom with more. Jamilka?
Co-workers at the event today described the victim as selfless and compassionate. They say that during this dark time, they want her to know that she's not alone. It was a sea of blue Sunday afternoon as nurses came together to support one of their own.
We are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving.
Nearly 400 medical professionals from Palm Beach County and beyond gathered at Jerome Golden Center, standing in solidarity for Leela. The 67-year-old nurse was attacked during her shift at Palm West Hospital and brutally beaten by a patient identified as 33-year-old Stephen Scantlebury.
I personally don't even know Leela. I just think it's something that, as a nurse, you know it's an issue, but it's not spoke about. And seeing that it happening in your own community to that extreme is absolutely heartbreaking.
To uplift Leela and her family and show that violence against healthcare workers will not be ignored, Crystal Morello came up with the idea for a rally.
I mean, this is the worst case scenario that I've ever seen. And I brought it up to Vanette, and it just grew from there. I posted on Facebook. St. Mary's reached out to us by 8 o'clock in the morning, and it just went viral.
And the turnout was successful. Guests lit candles and prayed for the victim's physical and emotional healing. Her daughter, emotional.
Just keep her in your thoughts and prayers that she'll come out of this stronger than ever.
Dr. Sandra Rizzoldi traveled all the way from Tampa and says it's about time nurses be better protected.
And that there is so much violence against healthcare workers, all the way from when they hit the door all the way to being on the floor. That means CNAs, EMTs out in the field.
Every one of us is affected when someone gets hurt. So our community is a very tight community in nursing. We represent compassion, love, caring, and kindness.
The victim remains in the hospital fighting for her life. The suspect is being charged with attempted murder. Reporting in the newsroom, Jamilka Gibson, CBS 12 News.
So that's very touching to see all of the nurses gather and rally and have such support for the nurse that got injured. That's inspiring. That's what it should be. That's a community. I'm sure there wasn't just nurses out there. As you saw, there was a doctor. I'm sure there were some CNAs, some techs, everyone else that works in the hospital, because this type of thing can happen and does happen, unfortunately. I think it happens with any customer service job and not just nursing or the medical field. However, we're probably more in a place where this can happen because we deal with psychiatric issues and we deal with patients that are grumpy, that they have to endure whatever medical condition they're coming in there to be treated for. They may not agree with the doctor's orders, things like that. They get angry. They want to take it out on someone, and most of the time it is a healthcare professional. Now, in this case, a nurse. Now, there are many things that we do at the hospital to try to prevent this. We even have guards on site 24 hours that we can call. We have that number to get them upstairs, to get them to that facility. We have codes we call when there's an active shooter, when there's somebody that's violent. Everyone in the hospital is notified. We even have these, which is a device that we keep on ourselves. It's too bright, but let me try to this. So it has a button here, and I forgot to turn this in when I quit the acute care hospital, or quit bedside. But you're supposed to attach this to your badge buddy, press this button if you're in a patient's room and violence is happening, and it lights up in the nurses station and alerts everyone to come to that room because you're experiencing something that's violent. So that's one of the things that I'm sure this nurse had on her, but was probably blindsided by this patient. And this is something that can happen when we let our guard down, when we've been doing our job for so long. But I recommend that you have this on you. I also recommend you don't wear your stethoscope around your neck. I know that is something that we get used to doing because it's so easy. It's right there. We do our assessments and it's easy access. However, this also gives a patient that is violent a weapon to use against you and choke you out with. And yes, it has happened in the past to other nurses and other medical professionals. And they grab that stethoscope and choke you out. Now, they also provide education, training. I'm not sure if it's for every hospital, but I'm probably about 90% sure, because it's just logical to provide this type of training. Some kind of self-defense, just a basic self-defense on if the patient is holding you this way, you should move this way, and telling you not to get too far into the room to where the patient is between you and the door. That should never happen. You should always be aware of your surroundings. Try to be alert and aware as you can, and never let your guard down. Even with the sweet old grandmas, I don't care. Protect yourself and make sure that you're providing the care that you're required to provide, and get out of there. And I am sure that even with all of this said, I am sure that this nurse did all of that. She has many years of nursing under her belt, and I'm sure she has plenty of stories and other times where she encountered a violent patient. But unfortunately, this stuff will still happen no matter how careful you are. I feel so bad for her because her eye, just all of this, but also her eye. She could have lost her eyesight. It looks like he stabbed her in the eye. And this is a very unfortunate situation. But as for you all, if you are new and you're starting in the hospital, please make sure that you are wearing this device if you have it, your Vocera, which will be the way that you communicate with other nurses and the other staff, including pharmacy, anybody that has any need to contact you. It's like a little walkie-talkie that they put on you. Make sure that you are aware of your surroundings and don't put it past anyone that they could harm you. And again, with that CEO, this is exactly why I tell you, have a backup plan. Have another job on the side or a business on the side, because I literally feel like these jobs don't care about you. This woman has been working there for years as a nurse, providing great care, I'm sure, but spending most of her life there. And this is the thanks she gets. This type of comment that had no empathy, no context, and basically looks like you don't give a damn about that nurse. And for them to say that the CEO called 911, it sounded like a woman that called, that was on the phone with the dispatcher. Let's not lie. Unless he made a second call, I don't know. But his voice sounded like a man or masculine. And it didn't sound like he made that call unless somebody took the call over. But how are you providing first aid and then calling 911? That seems like you're doing one thing or the other. And we know he did not place that call to 911, or he wasn't talking to the dispatcher at least. So yeah, I'm not sure why he would have provided the first aid or the care initially when she's surrounded by nurses and other people that could do that, and transport her down to the ED. So little iffy there. And I, tried to not jump to conclusions, but I'm jumping all the way, because it didn't sound like he was empathetic at all or sympathetic. So yeah, this is what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. Hospitals don't care. I mean, some of them might care. I don't know. If they do and you love your job and your hospital cares, I am happy for you. But a lot of the horror stories I've heard, and this is all from my perspective, this doesn't mean it will happen to you or that it happens to everyone. It's kind of weird that I keep hearing stories like this where the administration does not care. And I've also experienced it in the hospital. So yeah, as far as my own experience with violence, I did have a night where one of my other team members, who was a nurse, she got a patient that had psychiatric issues, and he was also a post-surgical patient. And that patient was rude, yelling at her all the time, and he was also on a psychiatric hold where he was not supposed to leave the hospital. So he got up to try to leave. The girl who was assigned to that patient that night was on the other side and did not know he was leaving. So the charge nurse saw him leaving and asked me, because she saw me in the hallway, to help her with him. Now, I had no idea what help her with him meant. This was not my patient, but I did the best I could. She was trying to stop him from leaving. She was like, sir, you cannot leave. She was calling down to the guards and telling them, we're walking towards the south stairwell. Can you please meet us there? This patient's not supposed to leave. He's on psychiatric hold, explaining the whole thing. And I run ahead of her. ahead of them, and we're going floor by floor, going down progressively. He's cussing her out. He's swinging at her. She's ducking. And I'm just like blocking every door, every floor that we're coming to. I'm blocking it so he doesn't go in. And this was probably about the third floor we were coming to. And I blocked the door. He tried to swing at my charge nurse. She ducked. He's coming down the stairs. And I'm like, he better not hit me, because I swear to God, I'm about to lose my job today. And he came down and fell on the last step and like ran right into my torso. And he just stayed down. He couldn't get up for whatever reason. He tried, but he kept like falling down. So I'm not sure of the background of this patient. This wasn't my patient. I just knew I tried to help my charge nurse. So he fell and he was on the ground trying to get back up. It wasn't due to an injury or anything. It was like, I don't know what kind of drugs or medication he was given, or what surgery he had, but that's what was causing him to not be able to get up. So he was cussing both of us out. The doctor came, and the doctor cussed him out. It was a very interesting night. The doctor was called, the doctor that did surgery, and this is like 1 o'clock at night. We try not to call the doctors at all unless we absolutely have to. So obviously this doctor came from his bed in his flip-flops, because he was wearing flip-flops and pajamas. And by this time, the guards were able to get him up to his room and keep him there. And the doctor came and was cussing him out. We heard him in the hallway. He was in the doorway. He was like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is the third time I did this fucking surgery." He was going off. And we were in the nursing station, like, you could have given us popcorn, like, ooh. Because I don't know. It's just funny when we hear the doctors come out of character. But he was livid. He was so angry. It's not even funny, but it was funny. It was funny to us. So that was one instance of violence. Near violence, I should say. My charge nurse must have had experience ducking these punches, because she was good, or she must be in a boxing class or something on the side. I don't know. I was like, "Oh, girl, that was a close one," but she managed to get out of it. And yeah, so that was okay. My other experience was just verbal violence from the doctor. And in retrospect, I really should have said something to him, and I should have walked off the job at that time. But I was trying to process these feelings of like, why is this person yelling at me? What makes him think this is okay? Like, I was processing all of that. And in retrospect, I really should have said something, and that's going to bug me for the rest of my life. But I digress. So hopefully you enjoyed the tips that I have given you. Keep yourself safe. Even if you're on your clinicals and you're in nursing school, please keep yourself safe. Do not walk too far into that room and put your back towards that door and leave and have the patient between you and the door. You will be educated on all of this when you get hired. Stay alert, stay safe, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.